most of the times people don't understand the stress and the work that's involved. And we're just using the whole therapist thing as an example. But even going back to the whole bodybuilding thing, you know, and going back to what I said about people wanting to change everything about themselves. Oftentimes, their past life is defined by drug addiction, alcoholism, sex, rock and roll. When people enter into treatment, they get in this mindset of, I have a clean slate. I can become anybody that I want to become from this point moving forward, which can be very beneficial, but in the same sense, can make you do things that are good to do, just it has to be timed properly. You have to have a solid foundation of your sobriety. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we've got Dr. T.
Hello, hello.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Right, T?
That's right.
All right. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good, Tom.
Yeah? A little stutter? Are you halfway good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. T, how are you?
I'm good.
How was your weekend?
Good. Chill.
What day is it? Today's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
It feels like we didn't have a weekend.
We didn't.
You had your birthday.
That's right.
It was just so go, though.
Yeah.
It was like, whew.
So Ben and I spent 4 days in Orlando, Florida at the NCI Convention Coaching Con, which stands for Nutritional Coaching Institute, for those of you that don't know. It's put on by a guy by the name of Jason Phillips. And I tell you what, we got quite a lot of good content, I would say. Mm-hmm. And it's not out yet. It will be out. And when it is out, you will obviously be the first to know. And I'll tell you this. Going up there, we didn't really know what to expect. And to say that our expectations were met, I would say that, and then some by far.
Yeah. Actually, that's an understatement.
That's why I said the by far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
We will say this. We did get to interview somebody that was rather fun and impressive, and I was on cloud nine. Let me just say. Do you want to say who we interviewed, Ben?
I think we could probably do like a quiz for our listeners, and I bet you they'd figure it out, Tom.
You think so?
I do, yeah. Maybe I'll make one of them things on Facebook. It's like,
maybe we'll give them a hint.
I don't even think they need a hint. Fanboy.
The initials are M as in mind and P as in pump.
I'm sure they could have guessed. How many times did we reference them? Or you reference them?
Yeah.
We did a couple unexpected ones, though, too. There was a few keynote speakers that are huge in the fitness industry. And they're telling their story up on stage, how they got to where they're at today. And all of a sudden, they're bringing up their drug addictions and suicidal ideation and depression. And it just went on. And the opportunity to just, I mean, I got to hand it to Tom, just walking up to people and be like, hey, man,
Yeah.
want to come upstairs?
Yeah. Want to come to my hotel room? Yeah. No, it was good. And, you know, everybody met us with open arms, and, you know, the episodes that we did get recorded, there was no like coercing them to do it. We just said, hey, this is our mission. This is what we're doing. Is this something you'd be interested in doing? And they said, yeah, absolutely.
You know what the wild part is like, for me, the people that we interviewed I put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like, oh man, they're super successful, this, that, the other. But the chance to see people like that, being human beings, being vulnerable, a couple of them on the YouTube, you'll be able to see teared up. And these are guys that like, I wouldn't expect to tear up. You know, so just having that experience and kind of looking at it from the frame of like, everybody needs somebody to listen to them.
Right.
You know, everybody needs an ear. Everybody needs somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. Ed Milet was a keynote speaker there, so that kind of goes to show the level of convention this was. It wasn't like some back, like what am I trying to say here? It was well put together.
I don't know. I walked into the conference room they were having it, and I literally felt like I was at Ultra Music Festival. It was like huge screens with, I don't know, I wouldn't say lasers, but it was a heck of a production.
Intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. So, but anyways, I wanted to, we discussed briefly, I think this would be a good topic of discussion today, more revolving around commitments. And when you make a commitment, there's sometimes sacrifices in those commitments being made. And we actually talked about this in one of the episodes that we recorded, and I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. Meow. Sal DiStefano.
I couldn't help himself.
Sal DiStefano we got to record with, and we talked about something in that episode that really sparked some thought amongst myself. And Ben, tell me what you think of this. Remember when we were talking in the episode about, in particular, people going through hard times, but having a goal at the end of it makes it worth it? Do you remember when we were talking about that?
I do, but it went a couple different directions.
Yeah. What directions?
Well, having the goal is definitely a good thing, but also we discussed the other side of that. Once you hit your goal, then what?
Right.
What's the expectation afterwards? Are you fulfilled after hitting that goal, or are you still chasing something?
Yeah, so oftentimes when people get into early sobriety, they tend to set goals for themselves that are achievable, but they may not be the right time. And Ben, I'm just going to put you on blast here.
Go for it.
You're obviously going through a pretty strenuous time. You have been over the last, I would say, 12 to 16 weeks in preparation for this bodybuilding show. Mm-hmm. And we're down to the, last 2 weeks before?
Yep. So, and I'll say this too. I did compete back December 16th and did not do as well as I wanted to do. I was like, I can do better. So I got with my coach and we were like, well, let's take a little couple week break and then go at it again before taking, I'm going to be taking like a year break after that. But point is like this time has been even harder, so like I hit a goal of just wanting to compete and then I'm like, I can do better. And, but there has to be an end point to get my mental clarity back. Because to be straightforward, like I'm like a space cadet right now. At times I feel kind of useless.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is because, again, like I said just a minute ago, when people go through this whole sobriety thing, oftentimes they have an opportunity to change everything about themselves. And they tend to want to, and I'll reference myself. I remember I had 6 months sober. Tambini, you know what I wanted to go back to school for?
To be a doctor.
Yes. But do you know what kind of doctor?
Psychiatrist.
Yes. How did you know that? Did I tell you this?
No.
No. Okay. Interesting.
But I can definitely see that. It's like a lot of patients that come through our treatment centers, they always say, I want to go back to school to be a therapist. I want to go back to school. I don't know. I think that they see it's the helping, they can relate. They see other people that are in recovery and they want to just help other people because they've been helped with what they're going through. So they're trying to emulate that.
Yeah.
They feel inspired by others that have helped them. Yeah. Inadvertently, you brought up like another goal people tend to have. And I love using our clients and the people that I went to school with, because Tom and I went to school together. That's where we met. We had our first human services class together. It was the first year of Palm Beach State having their addictions program. But I specifically remember there was people in the class that jumped in, and so many of them were in early recovery too. Because if you're going into addictions, like you were just saying, Dr. T, like chances are they were inspired by being in their own recovery. And what they would do, I remember some of them sign up for 6-7 classes. Wow. Then next thing you know, they're not in class anymore. Or they're complaining the whole semester. They got all D's. And I remember myself, I'm like, I waited. How long did we have sober? We had a couple of years. I had 2 years before I went back to school. And ended up only I think, honestly, the first semester I only took one class. And it took me 3 years to do like a 2-year program. You know, I really took my time. I got straight A's, had a 4.0. But I tend to see people like jump in too much and then they fail.
Yeah. I think I found the quick route and I bailed. Because if you remember correctly, I didn't stick with it.
Tom always finds the shortcuts, but they are effective and they get you to where you need to go. So like while I want to tease you at the same time, I'm like, hey,
What'd you do?
So interestingly enough, we were in the same program, and you got what, an associate's in science, right? In addiction, in addiction studies, I suppose. And at the end, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got a diploma.
yeah.
Right.
So it's college credit.
Yeah.
Basically, and those credits, then you register with the state as a certified addictions counselor. You got to take the exam, all that stuff. But there still is a loophole.
There is, and I found that loophole.
Of course you did.
That loophole was basically because the accreditation that we went through was through Florida Certification Board, and they basically have their criteria in which they want you to achieve in order to get a certified addictions counselor certificate. And so I found out I can just go on allceus.com and take all the tests and basically get all of my CEUs needed, package them up nicely, send them off to Florida Certification Board, because at the time I had already had the work experience. Because I think... Ben, I started working in the field a year prior to you, because I started working at Palm Beach Institute at a year sober. And because I remember when you got your first job at Unity.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so I had a little leg up in terms of work experience. So, I mean, I still went through a lot of the same stuff, but Ben like really went through he did it listen, I'm not saying do what I did, but we ended up with the same kind of thing. But you got a better education than I did, so, you know.
Well, the other thing is, too, and I'm not sure, like, what was your end goal? Just to be a group facilitator and have the credential for that?
Yeah, at the time, I just wanted to get my CAC because that would allow me to facilitate groups and stuff like that. And
so my goal when I started school was actually to be an LMHC, licensed mental health counselor, which is master's plus your what's it called,
bachelor's.
The 3 years of how many years they have to do supervision?
2 years.
2 years supervision to get licensed. But I mean, ultimately, that's why I went the college credit route, because then I could transfer to either Florida Atlantic or Lynn University, and continue on with that. But like you were saying, you remember when I got my job at Unity and I started as behavioral health tech, and then I just kind of fell in love with the operation side. I mean, I think being a therapist would be cool for me, like sitting down one-on-one and diving deep with people. But I personally think I would get burned out doing it. I like going to Rainbow Food in the hood and picking people up, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Remember we went there, Tom?
Yeah, I remember.
Tom stayed in the truck. He's like, I'm not getting out. I like being on the firing line, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, going back to what we were talking about with this, there's a time and place for these sorts of things. And oftentimes, like Tambini, you were referring to, I can't tell you how many times clients come in and they're like, hey, what do you want to do? Like for your career? Oh, I want to be a therapist. I said the same exact thing. I remember sitting in front of my counselor and he said, because I have a history of working on cars. And he's like, do you want to go back to being a mechanic? I'm like, no. Well, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a therapist. And I think that's natural for people, but you don't understand. Most of the times people don't understand the stress and the work that's involved. And we're just using the whole therapist thing as an example, but even going back to the whole bodybuilding thing, you know, and going back to what I said about people wanting to change everything about themselves. Oftentimes their past life is defined by drug addiction, alcoholism, sex, rock and roll, and when people enter into treatment, they get in this mindset of, I have a clean slate. I can become anybody that I want to become from this point moving forward, which can be very beneficial, but in the same sense can make you do things that are good to do. Just it has to be timed properly. You have to have a solid foundation of your sobriety. And I think people miss that mark.
And it can't become an obsession either. Like we've seen it with simple stuff. Like, we do all the adventure experiential therapy here. And part of that idea is to introduce people to quote unquote new hobbies, if you will, new passions. But I've seen situations where like someone will come in, all of a sudden they'll like learn to fish while they're here. And then they do nothing but fish to the point where like it takes over their life. And they're not moving forward. They're not learning anything in recovery. They're just like, I got to go fishing. I'm like, well, what's this going to... Well, I'm going to be famous and have a fishing YouTube channel. I'm like, dude, you're not Roland Martin. Like,
yeah.
And being realistic about the difference between learning to enjoy new things, taking on new challenges, and still having that balance of what's really important here.
Yeah.
If I did this bodybuilding thing in earlier recovery, it probably would have been a good thing.
What do you think, T?
I agree. I think one of the things we wanted to talk about with Ben was just how
is an intervention, huh?
how you feel going through it. If you were in early recovery, just your emotions, your mental state, your physical state, your sleep, how that all is affecting you. And if you were in early recovery, what do you think would be the outcome?
Well, I think, didn't we talk about this on a previous episode? I think you mentioned it where this camera's off, Tom.
No, it's not.
Oh, you're tricking me. Where when it comes to like nutrition and feeding yourself, giving yourself food and energy, like when your body's depleted, the first thing to go is your cognitive skill or comprehension. I don't know what's probably
your cognitive, like your brain functions on glucose. So if you're not getting any glucose, rapid acting carbs, whatever that is,
that's right.
Your brain, you're not functioning where you need to be. You're tired. You're sleepy. You want to take a nap. You can't focus. You can't concentrate.
That's why I eat Snickers.
Yeah, your body utilizes the calories for the vitals, the things that you have to do, breathe, your heart beating, etc. So like that cognitive function, and I'm definitely in that right now. I am not as sharp this last couple of weeks, especially this last week. It's been real bad. Not being able to sleep good because you're starving. If I was going through this now in early recovery, there's a really good chance I'd probably relapse. Just throw that out.
Do you think relapse, or do you think you just wouldn't be able to fulfill the commitment?
I would go, for me, probably relapse.
Really?
Yes.
Which inevitably we would be unable to fulfill the commitment.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're not going to be able to fulfill any commitments relapsing.
I mean, because to call it what it is, like bodybuilding is very unhealthy. You can't be in a depleted state with your body fat this low for X amount of time. Like it does, I will openly admit, like it's like exacerbated my bouts of depression, which I've been open about on the podcast anyway. Like I suffer from depression, have my whole life, but right now, like I think I'm far enough in my recovery, and which comes back to the timing, where I recognize I'm just completely depleted right now. This is temporary. And it's not like I'm doing it to myself, so to speak, and I'm aware of that, where I think if I was in early recovery, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and I would want some relief. And for me, relief is putting a needle in my arm, taking a drink, getting some booger sugar.
Even on a not even a bodybuilding level, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we see clients in particular do in early recovery that, I mean, bodybuilding is extreme. Most people don't go that route. I mean, a very, very, very small percentage. And, but you do see clients that undertake something else that isn't as extreme as bodybuilding, but it can definitely have the same sort of impact. And even sticking with the gym, you know, we see clients all the time that they end up making gym their god in a way and relying on the gym for things that realistically speaking, you should be relying on either, you know, spirituality or higher power, your support group, your community. You know, a lot of times people end up getting addicted to the gym and they isolate in a sense, isolate inside the gym, you know, go into the gym, put their headphones on, don't talk to anybody and just work out, you know, once a day, 7 days a week for 2 hours or twice a day. You know, we see these sorts of things and it can actually have you spiral backwards because Ben, I know you've referenced this all the time, not all the time, but you have referenced it. What happens if, God forbid, you break your leg or you break your arm or you get in some sort of accident and that impedes you? You're not able to go to the gym. Then what?
Yeah, you better be mentally and spiritually fit. You got to have more than one tool in your toolbox for stress relief, mindfulness, etc. You know, it's funny because even right now, I'll just throw it out there. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say names, but from a confidentiality standpoint, but in our clinical meeting we had Monday, we literally discussed a client who's came out and asked us, hey, can you take me to the gym twice a day? Yet this individual is really struggling to get employment, pretty much lack of effort to get employment. Yet you have the energy, time, desire, and drive to go to the gym twice a day. Like, where's the balance? That is not going to move you forward. The day that you graduate rock, if you don't have what needed to be lined up in place, which, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, an ability to provide for yourself, the basic needs, not the gym, you're screwed. Like it's a very, you know, familiar with the pyramid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple concept. And, you know, I think the clients sometimes think I'm crazy when I bring it up because I'm like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remember me learning about that in first grade? They're like, well, yeah, but how's that apply? I'm like, at the end of your stay, or right now, something that we'll ask our clients, if we asked you to leave today with your own resources, without asking your parents for help or family or relatives, what could you do for yourself? And generally, they end up like taking a step back, like, whoa, I never thought this through. I am completely unable to provide for myself, yet I want to spend 6 hours in the gym a day, or fishing, or running. We have a client right now that, in my opinion, kind of runs excessively.
But
and smokes cigarettes. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't know that. But it's like when we talk about transfer of an addiction to something else early on in recovery, especially if you're in our treatment setting, you don't have the skills to be able to cope with all of your emotions. So not only are you risking that transfer of the addiction, but you are not focusing on your coping skills, your processing of everything that's going on around you, forming relationships, forming community. All of that's kind of going away because you're honing in on and isolating on this one thing that is now going in line with your previous addiction, taking up the time out of your day, taking away from your ability to fulfill roles, you know, where you're at in your life. You spend more time obsessing or thinking about doing that thing. So it just comes to a point where they fall back. They're actually regressing, then progressing through without recognizing what's happening in that moment.
I like that you brought up roles, because one of the big ones that we see and hear a lot, it's almost on every pre-screen when I talk to somebody on the phone. I just got off a pre-screen prior to this recording this episode, and family brought up multiple times. I don't want to lose my family. But then, like, are you replacing that, you know, your addiction with something that's going to take you away from your family anyway? Because, you know, as guys that have been sober for over 13 years, like, even now, that's still a struggle for me. Like, I'm like, ooh, I got to go to a meeting. Ooh, I got to meet with the sponsee. It's taken away from family time. Like, we need that awareness that you're referring to, like, to constantly evaluate, reevaluate where we're at and the value in what we're putting our time into.
Right.
Well, I think that's why it's important to have people around us that can see these sorts of things. You know, having the community, having the sober network of people that can say, hey, you know, maybe you're putting a little bit too much effort into X, Y, and Z, and you should be focusing on, you know, something else. And that's why here, you know, at the treatment center, it's a lot of times these clients they don't get more out of the community, but I would say they get equal the amount of benefit from the community and their peers than they do their therapists or from myself, Ben Tambini, because the community holds them accountable, you know, and I'm not even just saying the clients that are here, but, you know, we take them to meetings and they build relationships there and they get phone numbers from people. And if they do the things that they're supposed to do and kind of go through this process the way that we suggest, you're building outside relationships with people. They're getting to know you. You're getting to know them. You're building kind of a bond, and they are able to kind of call you out whenever they see these things. And you see this a lot with like a sponsor-sponsee relationship. You know, it used to be back in the day that the sponsor's job was to just simply take you through the 12 steps. That is it, right?
Still is,
but not really.
I see. I know where you're going with that.
Yeah. I mean, back in 1940 and 50, like that, they did do that. My sole job is to take you through the 12 steps. That's it. But now it has morphed into more of a sponsor, an accountability partner,
life coach,
a marriage counselor, financial advisor, you name it, you know, unfortunately. And I don't agree with that, but you know, it's just the way that it is. But you will see sponsors calling out their sponsees. Like, hey, man, I know you went to the gym twice in one day, and all I was asking for was a simple phone call, and you can't call me, you know? And it really kind of puts it into perspective where priorities are.
Well, you really got to be open to allowing people to take your inventory. A lot of this past weekend in Orlando, to be straightforward, a lot of it was about leadership. And actually, I'll give kudos to Nicole. Nicole's our clinical director. Yesterday, she was sitting down with three of us from the leadership team, quote unquote, here. And she came out and asked and said, you know what, guys, I'm looking for opportunity to grow. She said something along those lines. But like, do you see anywhere where I can improve? And just being open to hearing any feedback, because then it inspired me to turn right back around to them and be like, hey, is there anything you all think I need to work on? And being willing to, quote unquote, take criticism, take coaching from people, get their insight. Because, you know, you were talking about basically sober support and people that will call you out. To be straightforward, you brought up the bodybuilder thing. The therapists have been giving me crap for the last 3 months since I decided to do a second show, and they're like, and like Marie, she's like, are you almost done with this? Is this the last one? Maya's like, I'm gonna get you a banana pudding cake. Come on, you know. But they want me to be done because they're concerned.
Everybody wants you to be done.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah,
It's not just them. Everybody. And I go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, finish. I want to hear it now.
No, I think everybody just wants you to be done because it's I'll say this. This is living proof as to like bonds that you develop with people. Mm-hmm. Like if I didn't care about you, if I didn't know you, if you didn't have an impact on my life and I didn't have an impact on your life, I could give two shits about it. Like if you want to put yourself through hell and go what you're going through, totally fine. But that's not the case here. We all have bonds with one another, you know? And as much as it's affecting you a lot more than anybody, but it also affects everybody else in the sense of like, your depression is getting worse. You know, we now we know we're at the tail end of this.
Yeah.
You know, Tambini and I earlier today were like, boy, Ben seems like he's in a bad mood, but we know you are. And we know why, because we both looked at each other and we're like, well, it's probably because of this bodybuilding thing. You know, that is why, because not only it impacts, we know the impacts it's having on you, but it impacts the people around you. And I'm willing to bet your family would say the same thing.
100%.
But there's and this ties back to the very beginning. You can't do this stuff in early sobriety. You're at a place in your life to where I'm not concerned about you. I don't think anybody's concerned about you. It's just like, you know, we want to see you hit your goal, do what you want to do. We're going to support you through that. But for God's sakes, can't wait till it's over type thing.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. Like it means a lot that people are like willing to say that to me too, because it would be easy with my addict mentality, and this goes for anybody, and it can be anything in life. Like, dude, if I after this develop an overeating addiction, like I'd want you guys to speak up, you know, like if I start going the other direction, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
You know, having people in your corner that care about you, and also for myself, recognizing that what I'm doing does affect other people. You're not wrong. Like, you know, Whitney was helping get the kids ready for school this morning, I went out for a 30-minute walk to try and get my steps in, my cardio for the day. You know, like it's something that I'm enjoying as far as a goal does take away from other people. And at some point I got to turn around and give that back.
Yeah.
I owe it to them. I owe it to everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to be able to go to lunch and you actually freaking eat food.
That's 2 times we've gone and you haven't eaten with us.
Oh, I'll be eating soon.
But I think it just goes to show back to what we were talking about early in recovery. All of these emotions that you're going through, the physical, the mental, the emotional, early on in recovery, someone wouldn't have that insight that you have today. And even though you have that insight, you still struggle with it. Mm-hmm. You know, we see it. We're here to support you. But early in recovery, if people were to go through this or do some type of other challenge, whatever it might be, there would be a high failure rate or inability to complete because they can't process all of the emotions, the physical, you know, stressors that come along with it, all of the other things and how it affects everyone else as well. So,
well, and what that ultimately does is go into what you were saying about the failure aspect of it. Addicts and alcoholics generally are used to failing at things, especially in their addiction. So to get into recovery and fail at things reinforces the idea of, okay, not only do I fail when I'm actively using, but I'm also failing when I'm sober. And that's kind of tying this into the whole job thing. I had a conversation with somebody this morning who will be left unnamed, but you'll be able to figure it out. He says, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to bag groceries, and I'm not going to do something. Bag groceries or be a cashier is what he said. And I said, well, why? And he says, because it's degrading. I was doing that when I was in high school. And I'm like, yeah, but there's something to be said about just going out and getting a job, you know, and humbling yourself. We don't care about what you did in the past. You know, it's about what you're going to do now. And I would argue that you would have a sense of accomplishment. You know, you're going and you're wearing a apron and you're bagging groceries or whatever the case is. Like,
but it's more than that. It's about learning structure, commitment, making money, learning how to budget, you know, having the ability to pay bills and get your life back. There's more. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Let me say this to that. That was a Ben Harrison. Let me say this to that. You can make a difference. And I think the reason we were talking about it earlier, people get into early recovery. They want to be a therapist. They want to work in this field. I've come to the realization now, because I'm doing this for a living. The person bagging my groceries can make a huge difference in my day. The guy at the front desk at the gym can make a huge difference in my day. Like, simply asking how I'm doing or being friendly or starting a conversation about something, you can have an impact on people's lives. And that's something that I hope our clients take from this too. It's not just about like, oh, I don't want that job because it only pays X amount of dollars and that's not enough to live off of. Like Dr. T is saying, it's so much more than that. You touched on like the structure. Tom, you touched on the accomplishment. But giving to people, no matter what you do, you have an opportunity to make somebody's day better. You know, I love it when I sit down at a restaurant and my server is super friendly. You know, if they're having a bad day, I'm like, oh, what's the problem, you know? And I try to make their day better being the customer, you know, but you could make a difference in people's lives. And that's the part that mostly I hope our clients grasp. Regardless of what you're doing, if you help other people in some capacity, you will be successful. Ed Milet was talking about that. What'd he say? Just help one person a day?
Yeah, the power of one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a book on that. I believe it's called The Power of One. Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, you know what's cool? I wanted to add this one last part. You know what's cool about this? I hope that our listeners pick up on the fact that like our conversations are very much organic. Like we'll come in here with like a topic and maybe some bullet points that we want to hit. But like this is just a conversation happening between the three of us. And in my opinion, this is like we're practicing what we're preaching, so to speak. Like you all are being very straightforward with me. It's being recorded, you know, but like this is what we do when the record button's not on too. This is how we live our lives. Mm-hmm. And like I hope that our listeners catch on to that.
Yeah.
It's not for show. This is who we are and what we do, and this is what I want our clients to learn. This is what I want our listeners to learn. Like living your life by these principles, by implementing these practices, being vulnerable, being authentic, having real relationships with people. We're just at the point where we're not afraid to hit record anymore because we own who we are, so to speak.
Yeah. Anything I can work on? Probably not, but I figured I'd give you the opportunity.
Not being grumpy.
I'm not grumpy today.
You're not today. I'll give you that.
I will say this. I was super impressed this week with you, Tom. I want to give you a compliment.
Yeah, okay.
Something I like the role. Like I was looking at it like, you know, in a way like when we were up there, I thought about this might sound cheesy. Like I feel like if I'm Mickey Mouse, you're Walt Disney. Like you made everything happen. You see what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
I'll second that. Like if you say something and you want something, you get it. Like you will do everything to make it happen in a good way.
Yeah.
You're driven, like it's awesome. And you accomplish what you're going to say. You follow through on it.
I just followed Tom around like a lost puppy dog this weekend. He looks at me, he's like, Pen, we're going up to talk to him afterwards. And I'm like, well, I got to go to the bathroom.
I know.
And then I'd walk up like 5 minutes later and Tom would be like, oh, this is the guy I was telling you about, my coworker. You know, after I disappear while Tom like does all the upfront.
That was interesting. That happened a few times.
Yeah.
It happened with, I almost said it. CP.
Yep.
I'd be with Ben. I'd be like, me too. I have to go to the bathroom.
And Tom's just like in there, man. He'll like cut the line.
I know you're not afraid. Like you'll just go. Boom.
Yeah.
No, I didn't cut any lines. I was being patient.
You did.
I was patient.
Calculated.
I was very calculated. Like I knew where the VIP room was going to be for this one particular speaker that I had to talk to. And I made sure that right when the time was right, I got up to go to the bathroom. So I would run out, go to the bathroom, and then I went and waited at the VIP door, for them to open. And so they opened it, and then I walked in, and it's literally me and this person who I could say this is Sean Stevenson. He's got the Model Health Show, one of the biggest podcasts ever. He's been podcasting for 10 plus years. And I wanted to talk to him. And so It was just literally me, him, and a couple other people. And they had the books all laid out. And there's something to this. As I walked in, they had this like folding table with all of his books, right? Or he has a book. He has a few books, but this particular book was called Eat Smarter, because he has a book that he really put him on the map called Sleep Smarter that came out probably 8 to 10 years ago. New York Times bestseller, blah, 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 blah. So when I walked in, the one girl, Brittany, who was the event coordinator, she's like, oh, get a book. And I'm like, I already have it. And he was there and he heard it. You know, and so something as small as that, like, and I made sure that I said it just loud enough. And I was like, oh, I don't need it. I already bought it. I bought it when it came out. As a matter of fact, I pre-ordered it because it, and, but it opened the door to that conversation with him. And so I'm standing there talking to him. After about 5 minutes, then Ben comes walking in. And I'm like, oh, this is Ben. He's one of the co-hosts. And, you know, we told him the mission and everything and asked him if he'd be interested on coming on. And he said, potentially, and he took my phone and put his admin girl's email in there and said, email her and she'll make sure that I get it. Cause I told him, I said, look, I know how this goes. I'm gonna send an email on your website and it's gonna go to somebody and
it's gonna get lost.
It's gonna get lost. And he was like, no, email her directly and tell her that you met me at Coaching Con, yada, yada, yada. And you know, I tell you what, I left that weekend thinking to myself, there's not one person that we would not be able to get on the show or get on their show.
You did say that to me.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about it too, just to kind of rewind back to the beginning of this episode, like assets can be liabilities and vice versa. Like when we were talking about how I went through school versus how you went through school, like you were saying that I did it the right way, but you utilizing the methods that you use of like, here's what I want. How do I get there? I'm going there quick is the reason that you're good at all that networking stuff. Mm-hmm. Like where I'm that guy. Like I don't want to be the one in front of 500 people that gets up while the speaker's on there to go to the bathroom to make sure that I'm there at the end. I'm the guy that doesn't want to stand up and walk out in front of, yeah. I wait till the end, which sets me up not to be in the right place.
Right.
When Tom's like, I don't care.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mind Pump. There's something that Adam says all the time, and it rings true exactly to what we're talking about. And he says it in the scope of the fitness world, but doing the least amount of work to elicit the most change. And now in terms of fitness, what's the least amount of work, rep ranges, total load, total volume, yada, 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 to elicit the most change? And I've kind of incorporated that into my life. What's the least amount of work that I can do to elicit the most change? Getting up to go to the bathroom, that's not a lot of work. But it could elicit the most change because I'm the first person in that room to make a connection that I otherwise may not have made, so
it's wild watching.
Yeah.
I think we all got a good dynamic here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tambini can write me blood pressure meds when I stress myself out over this stuff.
I can be your therapist when you have palpitations.
Yeah. I'm blessed. I
can't tell you how many times Tom thought he was having a heart attack this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm driving. He's, oh, dude, my heart. I'm like, Dr. T said you're fine. Relax.
I did. And look, you're fine.
Well, and then especially after eating at what was that steakhouse called? We should shout them out. What was it called?
I forget.
Da Vinci's? No. Da Vici's?
Something like that.
It begins with a D.
DeSalvo?
No, that's
Sal's last name.
That's De Stefano.
Oh man,
I don't know, but it was really good. But I scarfed down some steaks. I had one on two separate nights.
Oh, okay.
18-ounce New York strip.
Wow.
With rice and beans and tostones and ceviche. And what else? I think that was about it. But on two separate nights.
Tres Leches.
Oh, yeah. The Tres Leches was really good. Yeah. So yeah, my heart was like,
There you go.
You know?
Your blood pressure was high. Everything
Yeah,
was going out of whack.
a couple extra losartan, solves the problem. Yeah. All right. Is that it?
That's it.
That's it.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. And please go to Facebook and join our support group at Real Recovery Talk Support Group. That is it. We will see y'all later.